Do Matt Rule and the Huskers have a valid complaint for the Big Ten schedule makers?
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase.
All right, welcome in. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer, 1620 The Zone, is here with me. It is Penn State week. We are finally here. The bye week is over, and it's a night game in Happy Valley, Saturday, 6 p.m. Central Time on NBC. It was announced late this previous Saturday after things fell into place on the Big Ten pecking order. So Penn State is still alive for a bowl game, Connor, after its 28-10 win on Saturday at Michigan State. As we predicted, there will be something on the line for the Nittany Lions, who are 4-6 going into this game against Nebraska. If I had said in August, when we get to Penn State week, it's going to be disappointing because it's a 7-3 team against a 4-6 team, what would you have thought?
Yeah, if you would have said Nebraska is going to go into the Penn State game with 3 more wins than the Nittany Lions, I would have said, well, Nebraska is going to win the national championship. All right, awesome. Time to go. Things must have really gone well.
Simply hearing the records, I would have thought, oh my gosh, Nebraska's 4-6, because there's no way Penn State would be the 4-6 team in this scenario. Right. So we will talk later in the show a little bit about what happened in the Big Ten around the weekend. Michigan needed a field goal to beat Northwestern at Wrigley Field at the end. Iowa came up just short against USC. We want to get to first what will be a topic today, Monday, as Matt Rule meets with the media. That is the late start that we mentioned. So they went into the bye week, Nebraska did, with this game in the 6-day window. Everything was in the 6-day window in the Big Ten. And we found out that it's a night game, and Nebraska will fly home after the game, probably land in Lincoln around 2 or 2:30 in the morning. You can expect them to get to bed at 3 or 4 on Sunday, and they'll play at 11 a.m., as you know, the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday. Meanwhile, Iowa, the opponent coming to Memorial Stadium a week from Friday, will be home this Saturday for a 2:30 p.m. kickoff against Michigan State. So the Hawkeyes can tuck themselves into bed at halftime of the Nebraska-Penn State game and be so much more rested. That's going to be the narrative. Iowa is going to have an edge over Nebraska because the Hawkeyes will have all this extra rest on the weekend before the game. It's going to be a thing. How much of a thing? We're going to wait for direction from Matt Rule and what he has to say today. Well, I don't know that we're going to wait for it, but I think a lot of the talk around Nebraska is going to wait to see what Matt Rule has to say about this on Monday. What do you think should be the attitude about this scenario? Considering first that like the Penn State game is what's on people's mind, not the rest ahead of Iowa, but it is kind of a unique 2-game closing 1-2 stretch. Like these games go hand in hand in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Nebraska plays on Black Friday every year. So that's just something that you have to deal with. I mean, theoretically, it'd be nice for them to have a bye before this week, but you can't have everything you want. I think that I think that Matt Rule should continue to sort of plead his case. I mean, he talks all the time about how they need to be unashamed or whatever it might be. They need to be bold and all that stuff. Like, and he's talked before about, opponents getting buys on the regular before they play Nebraska this year and kickoff times and trips across the country and stuff like that. So I would expect Matt Rule to continue to say, hey, we should take a look at this in the offseason. There's obviously nothing he could do about it now. And I think he should do that. He's well within his rights to do that, to plead his case as the Nebraska football head coach.
Yeah, when you play the card in your program about the importance of, sleeping at the right minute in the right amount of minutes, and the type of travel, and when you eat the food on the day before the game, and how long the bus ride is, and all of the things that we've heard before Nebraska went to Maryland, and going a day early to Maryland. Yeah, I mean, Nebraska has a whole department devoted to sports science, and another one devoted to nutrition, and then another one, of course, to fine-tuning these players' bodies. It only makes sense that you're going to have an opinion about what's coming up here with rest after your
Anybody should.
final game. But I think it's only an excuse if you let it be an excuse. So I think it should be addressed, and it should be mentioned, and then it should probably be, well, it's not something that's under Nebraska's control at this point.
Yeah.
It didn't have say in what the kickoff time would be this Saturday night, and it's got bigger fish to fry because there's two very good opponents on the schedule, and Nebraska can't do anything about the kickoff time and the lead up time and the amount of rest and when it goes to bed on Saturday night, Sunday morning. So I think they'll do this. I think they'll deal with it, and then they'll set it aside and say, let's go play the games as they're scheduled.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's not, it doesn't have to be an excuse. I mean, that's like, but it's a press conference, and we're talking about stuff like and like I said, he gets up there once a week and talks to the entire state and talks to everybody who wants to listen. So I think it's his platform to say whatever the heck he wants. It's not, it's not like a baked in excuse or anything like that into the locker room. But I do think it's something that he'll talk about, and if fans want to talk about, oh, the Big Ten does this and this and this. It's not specifically directed at Nebraska. I mean, it's a really, really difficult thing to do, to make it all work for these 18 teams in this stupid giant league. So it is not an excuse. You get what you get in the schedule. You can't go back afterwards and say, oh, well, we had the short week with the long, you can't do that. You can't do that. But you could talk about it beforehand. You could say, hey, look, I'd like to take a look at this in the offseason. That's not an excuse making.
We're in this strange place, and it's probably why it was on my mind as we laid out what we were going to discuss this morning. We're in this strange place in the Big Ten where it has become such a talking point, and it's not in others. It's not as much in other sports or professionally or around college sports. And maybe it's just that I'm not close enough to it to pick up on the narrative. To the NFL teams that are playing over in Europe every single Sunday morning, is it a conversation with them? Because we hear it a lot in the offseason, in the summer, and really throughout the season, whether it's the West Coast teams in the Big Ten that have to travel to road games, and you've seen some dips in their performance and some the beginnings over these first 2 years with the expanded league of trends that exists when teams have to jump one or two time zones. And then that kind of spreads into a conversation about rest between games, and you're playing a night game before a short week. It seems like we're in this place in the Big Ten where Big Ten football, where this gets talked about more than it does in just about any other landscape around sports in America.
I believe, first of all, if you could volunteer for as many international games, like the Jaguars have one every year or whatever, but like you're only mandated to have one, I think, once every 4 years by the league. And then I'm pretty sure they get a bye automatically after every single one. So they bake that stuff into the cake. So it's a conversation everywhere. Everybody feels a little bit slighted by it. And yeah, I think that's okay. But it's, once again, like if we're talking about it as an excuse, that comes with the idea that you're going to lose the game and then go back afterwards and say, well, we lost in part because we had this long, or lose one of the two games. We lost in part because we had this long thing in this short week. Like, no, they should not do that. That should not come up after any of these next two games. But now on a Monday, yeah, why not?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, what else about Nebraska-Penn State this week is going to be top of mind? We'll look into the into the future. What's Matt Rule going to be talking about on Monday? What will be the storylines out of Happy Valley? I think that the stuff about Rule and his connections to Penn State, the situation at Penn State now, looking for a coach. And this is one of those coaching searches. Nebraska went through this 3 years ago in 2022. So James Franklin was fired just a couple of weeks after when Scott Frost was fired at that point in the season. Remember how long the coaching search felt at Nebraska. We got to places in times in November where we in the media and the public were like, they have to do something. Trev Alberts has to make a statement. They've got to get this thing figured out. And Trev was just kind of sitting there like, guys, we're not going to announce anything until the season's over. And then the day that the season ended, it actually leaked. It leaked on Black Friday as Nebraska was headed to Iowa. But the morning after the season was over, Nebraska officially announced a coach. Like, it wasn't elongated. I tried to
prolonged, elongated. Yeah.
Yes, I made 2 words there. I made 1 word out of 2 words. The search was not excessively long for the situation that Nebraska was in, and I know it feels the same way at Penn State. Like, oh, they're missing on all these candidates. They're getting coaches all over the country, extensions. Mike Elko from Texas A&M got one on the weekend, this previous weekend, and almost lost to South Carolina. But so Penn State is I think they're anxious about what's going on, and I imagine that with Matt Rule coming in to Beaver Stadium, that'll be another talking point this week.
I'm sure. Although, like, this is you don't, even when you fire a coach in September, you in most cases don't get to hire one until after the regular season ends. So this is part of the deal for them. I don't. Like, there's been this whole run on firing coaches early and stuff like that, and people want to talk about, oh, well, you can get a run on the job search or something like that. It's like, sure, I guess, whatever. But also, like you just said, Mitch, your fan base is going to be stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring, and they're going to get impatient, and they're going to, whatever. If you could hold up to that pressure over 2 months, then whatever. But the point is, there's nothing they can do about it right now.
It all sounds nice in September. Hey, we'll have a coach at the end of the season, and nobody's going to get too upset about this because we know the season's long. And then as it goes on, it's really hard to be patient through all of that. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back, talk about what happened on Saturday night in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with the Nebraska men's basketball team. That was interesting. Coming up next.
First, a word from FanDuel, where the NBA is back and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, whatever it might be, nightly in the association, FanDuel, they have live bets on everything from who will score next, fourth quarter comebacks, live spreads, live over-unders, things like that. So take a look. You could even place the same game parlay live if you'd like to as well. So whether it be live or before the game or way before the game, check out FanDuel. It helps keep every game exciting. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. And thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Nebraska basketball had their now annual game at the Sanford Pentagon this weekend, where they matched up in an old school 90s Big 8 battle with Oklahoma, and it certainly looked and felt like it a little bit as well. Nebraska wore some throwback jerseys, and then they dropped 105 on the Sooners right after. I was out at the start of the game and listening to Kent, and it was 10-0 Oklahoma before I could even blink. It was like, wait, it's 10-0. What is going on? Kent's down bad. There's defensive lapses all over the place, and they put Kent up in the way top.
Saw that. What's going on with that?
How he couldn't see anything and things like that. Tough, but Then Nebraska went on to make 15 threes and had in front of a bloodthirsty crowd in Sioux Falls and knocked off the Sooners.
And Nebraska was down 16 in the first half, came back to make it a 7-point game at the break, shot 9 of 14 from 3 in the second half. The Huskers scored 61 points in the second half. This was true Danny Nee, Billy Tubbs era basketball for portions of the game. Really impressive. Again, this is a trend, and this probably says more about my basketball acumen than anything else, but it's a trend where I watch a Fred Hoiberg coach team in the first game or two of the season, and I think, oh boy, this margin for error is so small. Fred is going to have to do an amazing job just to coach this team to get to a place where they can win a few games in the Big Ten. And then this is like the most extreme example. 3 days later, they come out and burn the Nets and score 105 in regulation to beat a good SEC team. I think Oklahoma's pretty decent, mid-level SEC team. So Price Sanford, Nebraska's first-year transfer from Iowa, scored 28. Rink Mast, doing Rink Mast things all night, had 26. Buchtengel with 16. Jamarcus Lawrence, 14. Cale Jacobson scored 10 off the bench. This wasn't even like a Sam Hoiberg special. He was kind of non-existent in this game. He's been Hoiberg, and I guess you could put Sanford and Mast in there, but Hoiberg's been kind of the driver of things when they're not making threes. He was for the first 3 games of this season, and they got it done by making threes and playing. What I noticed that Nebraska did was they want to get into this frenetic game. They want to get into a situation where it's almost out of control, and the running is it's up and down. And then boom, they start popping transition threes, and their opponent, it was a big shot on the chin to Oklahoma with the way that Nebraska was making threes, obviously in the second half.
Yeah, I think with that's a really good observation, and definitely something that they will. No, but it is, because Oklahoma, what they had was length and athleticism. All those SEC teams do. They don't rate particularly highly in the defensive metrics, but they are long and athletic, and so they have that upside. And so you'll see, Nebraska will see that a lot in the Big Ten this year. It's just tough to operate in the half court when you're dealing with I think Nebraska is a lot more, seemingly a lot more skilled than they have been, but they're a little less athletic probably. So they probably need to get out and run and make a bunch of threes and all that stuff. And it was great to see that big game finally from Price Sanford, who, knocked in 4, Mass knocked in 5 3-pointers. It was up and down and up and down. And the crowd, I mean, come on, man. Like that was insane. That was, I wasn't there, but listening to people who were there is like, yeah, that was like a top, that was like a top 5 or 10 Husker experience. Just a like angry, probably drunken, like yes. I'm going 2 hours up the road here, so like all bets are off. It's Oklahoma, and it's a big chance for Nebraska kind of to have a nice little stamp win early in the season here. So that crowd absolutely rocked. I mean, it sounded really loud on TV.
I hope a lot of those people hung out in the parking lot for a couple hours after the game before making the trek back to Omaha and Lincoln. Or maybe they were all from Northeast Nebraska, where it was only 2,500 to 3,000 people. We know that Kurt from Wahoo was there because
full mast
in the full mast T-shirt, because he was ejected from the game by official Kelly Pfeiffer, a Dakotan himself.
Yeah.
And for throwing the ball back too hard to the official on the baseline when it landed in the hands of this fan in his courtside seat.
You got to set the tone. So the best part about that was the guy. So after, Kelly Pfeiffer engages with him, and Nebraska's had their run-ins with Kelly Pfeiffer over the years. And especially Tim Miles and Fred a little bit as well. They get him all the time as a ref. And so he gets the ball back. The ref gets the ball back, and then he engages with our boy Kurt, who's got the full mask shirt on. And they have the camera down on him. And the guy next to him is his bro is like, this guy, we're throwing this guy out of here. And then he gets out of there, and that's it. God, I mean, that was a great moment. Nebraska's down by 10. Mm-hmm. Can we say that it sparked the crowd and sparked the Huskers on the run that they made in the second half?
Yeah, we can say that. I don't think it actually did, but we can say that for sure. I don't know that too many of the Huskers noticed Kurt from Wahoo getting ejected from the game.
Thank you, Kurt. Yeah. A big win, potentially, like, if Oklahoma checks out this year, potentially a quad 1 neutral site win, all because of you, Kurt from Wahoo.
Yeah, I know. I tremendously enjoyed watching the game. Just totally watched it from the perspective of a fan on Saturday night. I was out for pizza with my family and my wife's family celebrating her birthday, which is this week. So watched the first half at Mama's Pizza on Pacific Street. Shout out to them. No free advertising. Come on. And then watched the second half we drove home at halftime and watched the second half on the couch. And that's fun to watch, which I could not have said after watching a few days before when Nebraska hung 69 on Maryland Eastern Shore. So good for Hoiberg's boys, and they're going to Kansas City next. Nebraska will play
New Mexico.
Mississippi State, New Mexico,
and then I think it's Mississippi State. And I can't remember who the fourth team is.
Is it K-State there?
It might be.
Yeah. So they got some more opportunities for power conference wins coming up here this week before the Creighton game, which is December. Is it first week of December?
December the 7th.
Okay. Yeah, that's Sunday. The Sunday of college football playoff selection Sunday. So that'll be interesting. Okay. Other things that will be going on around that time will be Nebraska volleyball in the NCAA tournament. The Huskers are going to be the number 1 seed overall in the NCAA tournament. Their selection Sunday is still a couple of weeks away, the Sunday after Black Friday, but Nebraska's 26-0. Danny Busboom Kelly's team, after winning the weekend at UCLA in 4 sets on Friday night and then sweeping number 17 USC on Sunday. 2 more record crowds. Huskers and their California opponents set record crowds, set records at Pauley Pavilion with a crowd of more than 10,000 on Friday. And then at the Galen Center on Sunday, they were just under 10,000, but largest volleyball crowds ever to visit those venues. Nebraska lost a set.
I know.
On
that's
Friday at
that's
UCLA
the lead here, right?
Yeah.
Like they lost a set. It doesn't actually mean anything because they still won handily in the match. In fact, it may have just angered them even further, but they did lose a set for the first time in like 45 sets or something.
They won 48 consecutive sets. Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And UCLA got
who you're playing. And that's incredible.
Yeah. UCLA got one, and then Nebraska, that was the third set of that match. So it was 2-0, and then Nebraska steamrolled the Bruins in the fourth set, and really the whole day. Sunday against USC was a different level. I watched that, and Nebraska was playing. USC had won 9 consecutive matches with some pretty good play coming into that one on Sunday, and Nebraska just
buzzsaw.
Made them look silly. So, all right, we will continue to follow both of those teams as the month of November goes along, and it'll be an exciting December for you would think for them as well. More football when we come back. College football is back. Speaking of back, and it was never gone. And we could not be more excited about where college football is at right here, heading into the final 2 weekends of November. The tailgates, rivalries, the energy is there in the stands. There's nothing like it. But let's be real. If you want to get tickets, it can feel like more of a battle than the game itself at times, with endless queues, hidden fees, prices that jump at checkout. That's why Game Time is the app for me, and it should be for you. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. One thing you can try, Zone Deals. Zone Deals allow you to pick the section, and then Game Time picks the seats, and then you save the money. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, back with you on this Monday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. We're going to take a quick spin around the Big Ten from this previous weekend. We mentioned what happened at Wrigley Field, near disaster for Michigan. The Wolverines needed a field goal at the end to beat Northwestern. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad that Michigan won. Nothing against Northwestern. Like, it's a good story this year. Cats have been putting up great fights really every week when they haven't been winning. But this allows the imagination to wander a bit in what we can get on Thanksgiving weekend, because Michigan is now still in contention for the college football playoff because it won that game. Wolverines have 2 losses to Oklahoma, which is looking better and better. The Sooners won at Alabama Saturday, and then at USC. So if Michigan beats Ohio State, which is what we're talking about here, if Michigan were to knock off the number 1 team again, then you would think that Sharon Moore's team would be in decent position to get an at-large bid in the CFP, and that would not have been on the table if Michigan hadn't been able to do what it did at Wrigley on Saturday at the end.
I think so, but I don't give a rip about Michigan making the college football playoff. I'd like them to be sitting at home.
I would just like to see a game that means something beyond Michigan, Ohio State on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Like, I want the more there can be on the line, the more enjoyment it is for me as going into fan mode to be able to watch that game.
Like, for that game, for the Michigan Ohio State. Because I always think it's funnier when one team has a lot on the line and the other team has literally nothing to lose, and then that team wins.
Yeah, that happens a lot in this series.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I just want whatever maximum Schadenfreude we could get from that game. And if Michigan would have lost to Northwestern, it would have created that opportunity. So I was definitely rooting for that. And I just have a general distaste toward Michigan. So
your feelings about Michigan are noted.
Yeah, thank you. Bryce Underwood, you got to stop throwing picks in the fourth quarter. That would be my advice to him.
All right, Iowa was up 14 in the first half at USC, lost the lead in the second half, and then had a chance to win it at the end. Hawks were. Would you say this call was controversial? Iowa had a 4th down throw to the sideline inside the USC 10 with 2 minutes to go, and Caden Weechin came down with it, had a foot right on the line.
I know. I thought they at least should have taken a closer look at it. I mean, it was kind of bang bang. They were just like, "Yep, foot's on the line, game's over." And I'm like, I don't like. Can we take another look, or can we at least make this feel like it's a bigger call?
It's a huge call
during the BTN broadcast. Yeah, it was a game deciding call, but yeah, credit USC in the second half. I mean, they came alive. I think through the rain and all that stuff. Like Mayava was like just forcing balls in there, and his receivers were going up and making plays. And it was one of the things that he was a little bit scared to do in the first half as Iowa built their lead. So credit USC, big win for them. And Lincoln Riley was appropriately jacked after they sealed it.
Mekhi Lemon looked like the best receiver in the country on Saturday in LA, and which is notable for Nebraska fans because he was held down in that game in Lincoln. But hey, great receivers, great players are allowed to have one bad game a year, and some of that for sure had to do with Sierra Wright. But he went off, Lemon did, and maybe the favorite for the Biletnikoff Award heading into the final couple of weeks. USC still alive for the college football playoff, in addition to Michigan in the Big Ten. So back to that play. So I don't know if I saw some photos on social media that were doctored, but on the video live, it was pretty clear, I thought, that the tip of his toe touched the line. Great catch, way to get the foot down. I don't think the heel was down first, which is what some of the conversation was among Iowa fans and media. But then there were some photos that came out where it was like, whoa, there's some green there between the tip of the toe and the line. And I don't know. It didn't look like that on video. So I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure without, doing an investigation how close it was close. But if Iowa got jobbed there a bit or what, but like you said, they didn't look, they reviewed the play, right? I mean, they did
review it, but it was fast. It was a lot like usually, those game altering calls of this long drawn out, like, and the tension sort of builds toward it. But it didn't feel like that was the case on Saturday during that game. Yeah. I mean, it looked like he was out, but boy, it was awfully close.
So the Hawkeyes have now lost 4 games against ranked teams. Iowa's 6-4. By a total of 15 points. They're likely going to come to Lincoln next Friday with a 7-4 mark. Iowa, as we mentioned, is at home against Michigan State on Saturday. Nebraska could be 7-4 as well, or the Huskers could pull an upset this week. Huskers are 10-point dogs going to Penn State and pull an upset and be 8-3. Either way, the winner of that Black Friday game is going to have the better record or equal record with possibly a better resume heading into bowl season. What I'm trying to say is I think the winner of Nebraska-Iowa, no matter what happens this weekend, is going to have a shot to get its preferred Florida Bowl destination. As I say that if Iowa loses to Michigan State and comes to Lincoln at 6-5, then throw that conversation out. But I'm assuming an Iowa victory at Kinnick this Saturday. And then I think if that's the case, whatever happens to Nebraska, then the Huskers and the Hawks are playing for their preferred Florida Bowl destination.
Maybe they should call Nebraska Iowa instead of the Heroes game, which is great, by the way, but maybe they should change it this year to the Sun Bowl or something like that. The Heat Bowl. Who gets the winner gets the most sun / heat.
The battle for the beach.
Could do it.
Okay. We'll propose that. What is Nebraska looking at this week heading into Penn State? Huskers got game 2 under TJ Lateef. That will be on the minds of everyone this week. And on defense, Nebraska wants to get Dason McCullough, its best pure pass rusher, or one of its best pure pass rushers, back. He was out, did not play against USC. And then Dawson Merritt at linebacker also missed that game. I think it would be obviously beneficial if the two of them can be back in good health heading out to Pennsylvania. We'll hear from Matt Rule Monday about their status for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Like you said, Nebraska's 10.5 point dogs, depending on where you look. And I thought people looked at that and they said, what in the world is going on? From a talent perspective, Penn State's still really, really good, and that could come out of it. And so does Nebraska, can Nebraska apply the type of pressure? I'm not talking about like actual pass rush or anything like that, although that is a part of it. Can Nebraska apply the pressure to get Penn State into the situation where they've gotten to too much this year for them, which is, they've the quarterback play has obviously been very spotty. After Drew Aller goes out, it was even spotty with him. And then, the defense tends to get a little bit leaky. So can Nebraska put that type of pressure on them? We'll see. They're really talented, but there's a lot that will go into this game for sure.
And I'm sure that some of the thought from the odds makers in looking at this game as they set a spread has to do with the fact that the strength for Penn State and what Penn State has gotten back to in the past couple of weeks and taking Indiana to the last second and then in beating Michigan State is just flat out running the ball, and a recognition that Penn State has 2 of the best running backs in the country. And if they're going to go down and miss a bowl game this year, they're going to do it handing the ball to Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Yeah. And it worked against Michigan State. You look at what has given Nebraska problems this year from a defensive standpoint. I think we all know what that is. Nebraska's going to have to come up with some kind of a game plan where it takes some risks to stop the Penn State run game, like committing extra players to the Penn State run game, which leaves you susceptible to big plays in the pass game. But I think Nebraska will take that risk and live with the results if it means having a chance to slow those two guys down.
Yep, lots to get into this week for a night game on Saturday evening. Like Mitch said, we'll hear from Matt Rule today, and we'll continue on throughout the week. But that will do it for us today. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big Ten. Find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.